Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Kari, and today I'm going to be talking about the 25 books that I want to prioritize in 2025. So while I definitely read way more than 25 books in a year, I typically read around 75 books-ish every year. So this definitely isn't my entire TBR for 2025. These are just the 25 books that I have in mind to prioritize next year. There's a pretty good mix of different genres on this list, so hopefully you can find some inspiration for your own 25 and 2025 lists. The first book that I want to be prioritizing is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. Over the years, I've discovered that I really enjoy Japanese fiction, and Haruki Murakami is like one of the biggest names in Japanese fiction in the Anglophone world, and a lot of people really love this one from him. So I feel like this is something that I would really enjoy as well. It is extremely long. This is a chunker, but I've been intrigued about this one for years, and I have to pick it up next year. All I really know about this one is that, so it's 1Q84, and like the Q is like question mark, like you don't know if it's 1184 or 1684, like what year it is, and it's supposed to be in contrast to George Orwell's 1984, and that it's like multiple timelines or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. I am looking forward to getting into this one. So for my 24 in 2024 list, I said that I wanted to read either Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch or The Little Friend, and this year I did choose to read The Goldfinch, so that only leaves The Little Friend to read now. So I want to put The Little Friend on my 2025 list so that I can complete the reading of Donna Tartt's trifecta of published fiction. Of course, she has a lot of other smaller stuff published online, which I want to read as well, but this is the last book of hers that has been published traditionally that I want to read. I know that this one has quite different reception than The Secret History and The Goldfinch, so I'm interested to see where I fall on this one. Honestly, it doesn't matter what it's about because I am obsessed with Donna Tartt and I want to read everything from her, so I'm definitely reading this next year. The next book on this list actually hasn't been published yet. I think it's going to be published in April 2025, but it's something that I definitely want to read. It's Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. Now, I'm going to tell you what this book is about. Stay with me, okay? Basically, okay, I haven't read The Pisces, but I know what it's about. It's like a woman being in a relationship with a fish, I think. And basically, Sky Daddy is that idea, but the woman is in love with a plane. It just sounds like that perfect combination of weird that I love in a book. I'm intrigued. I want to see how the hell Kate Folk is going to do this. It could be really good or really bad. We'll find out. So the next book on this list is actually another one that hasn't been published yet. It's going to be published in October 2025, and it's Mother Eating by Jess Hagemann. There's actually not a lot of information out about this book yet because it's so far away from being published, but the little bit of information that has been out there, I already know I'm going to beg and plead the publisher to get an advanced copy of this book because I am hooked. I'm dying to read this. So let me tell you what it's about. Basically, it's a retelling of Marie Antoinette's court. So obviously Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, married to Louis XVI. They were both beheaded during the French Revolution. They were living in Versailles. If you've been here any amount of time, you know that I live in France. I'm obsessed with France. I'm obsessed with Versailles. All of that, the whole history, I'm obsessed. Okay, so already I'm hooked. But it's a retelling of her and her court, but reimagined as a sex cult in Texas. Yes. 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 Give me a copy of this book. I want to read this so badly, okay? So anyway, I am so excited about this book. I can't wait. Okay, anyway, that's literally all the information that we have about the book. I like built it up as if we've like heard a lot about it, but we've heard like one sentence about what the book is going to be about. That's all I need. That's all the information that I need. I have to read this book. Okay, moving on. The next book on my list is My Last Innocent Year by Daisy Alpert Florent. Honestly, I don't even remember what this book is about, but I was sold by the cover. I was sold by the synopsis. I do think that this is like a coming of age story of a woman at university, and I think some pretty dark things happen to her. Again, dark things happening to women and how they react to these things happening to them. That's my genre of book, so this is something I want to get to next year. Next, we have To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara. A lot of you already know that A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm obsessed with that book. And actually, I had pre-ordered this book. I was in the middle of reading A Little Life when this book was on sale for pre-order, and I was loving A Little Life so much that I pre-ordered this right away, even though I hadn't even finished A Little Life yet. So I've had this, I pre-ordered ordered this and I haven't even read it yet, and it came out like 2 years ago. So I definitely need to get to this. I hope it's as sad as A Little Life was, because I love when a book can make me cry, and I'm counting on Hanya not to let me down. So I already had one book from Haruki Murakami on this list, and now I have a second one. It's Norwegian Wood. Speaking of sad books, I've heard that this is really sad. I think it's like a flashback the character's having back to his time in university and the relationships that he was having, but all I've heard is that it's really, really sad, and it's sad. Sign me up. I have to read this. The next book on this list is actually kind of a cheat. I'll explain what I mean. Very recently, I've read 2 nonfiction books from Rachel Cusk, and those were the first 2 books that I've ever read from her, and she's really more famous for her fiction, right? But the 2 nonfiction books that I read, they were so freaking good, and so I really want to read some of her fiction. So these are all her fiction books. I know that she has like a trilogy too, so obviously I couldn't just read out of order the trilogy, but I want to read a Rachel Cusk fiction book in 2025. If you have any recommendations about where I should start with Rachel Cusk's fiction, definitely let me know. I would love to hear from you. Where should I start with her? Another book that I don't have yet, but I definitely want to get a copy of, is I'm Mostly Here to Enjoy Myself by Glynis McNichol. This is a nonfiction book about a woman in her mid-40s who, just after the pandemic, she's not married and she doesn't have any kids, and just after the pandemic she moved to Paris, and so this is a nonfiction book about her adventures trying to date in Paris, and also about these new experiences that she's having, because originally she's from New York, so obviously coming here to Paris and experiencing all the different things that Paris has to offer than the US and New York. And as you may know, I am an American living in Paris, and so I just think that this would be a really fun book to read for me. So yeah, I definitely want to get myself a copy and read that in 2025. Okay, for all of you who have been here since I read the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist in 2023, you're going to be really disappointed in me because I'm putting Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver on my 2025 reading list, because no, I never went back and finished it. I read the shortlist, like I said, of the Women's Prize for Fiction in 2023. I started Demon Copperhead. I was loving it, but it was the last book on the shortlist that I was reading, and I just hated all the other books. So I was in the slumpiest slump of all time when I got to this, and I felt like I was not giving this book its justice, because I was loving everything that I had read so far, but I was just like I said, I was just in a slump, and so I didn't feel like I was respecting the book by forcing myself to keep reading it when I was in like such a bad mood about reading at the time. And so I just want to start over. I got pretty far in the book last time, but I'm just going to start over. I want to fully enjoy this book because, like I said, I was loving it, and I really think I'm going to enjoy this one. I mean, obviously, literally everyone has already read this and they're loving it, and I don't think I'm going to be any different. Next, I have The Extinction of Irina Ray by Jennifer Croft. This is a literary fiction book about a bunch of translators that go out to this author's house. Like, they're all translating this author's book into all these different languages, and like the author goes missing or something like that, and then like a bunch of weird things happen to all the translators. I've heard that it's a really fun book. It's kind of weird, and I'm intrigued. As someone who is really fascinated by language, I like weird books. It just seems right up my alley. The next book on this list is similar to my Rachel Cusk situation, is that I very recently read Exalted by Anna Dorn, and I loved it. It was so good, and so I want to read something else by Anna Dorn in 2025. So she has 2 other books that I'm interested in. I mean, they might be the only other 2 books that she has. That's very possible. But there's Perfume and Pain and Vagabond, which I knew the name Vagabond before I read Exalted, and there's a character named Vagabond in Exalted, so I think it would be fun to have like the backstory of that character by reading that one. But it doesn't matter. I want to read one of these other Anna Dorn books because Exalted was just so good, and I want to see more from Anna Dorn. Next, we have something a little bit different, obviously science fiction, because it's Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Obviously, if you know my reading taste, you know that I'm not really a science fiction girly, but I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. And I haven't read The Martian by Andy Weir, but I saw the movie because that came out years ago when I was not reading science fiction at all. So I wasn't interested in reading the book, but I watched the movie and I really enjoyed it. So I feel like I can enjoy Andy Weir's storytelling. And like I said, I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. So I feel like even a lit fit girly like me could enjoy something like this. Next, we have another book that's not coming out till 2025. I think it should be out at the end of January, and that's Blob by Maggie Sue. So apparently 2025 is going to be the year of falling in love with inanimate objects, because we already had Sky Daddy by Kate Folk, and now we have Blob by Maggie Sue, which is a woman falling in love with a blob. A blob. Again, for the exact same reasons that I want to read Sky Daddy is why I want to read Blob. I want to see how can you make this a good story. Obviously, it's going to be weird. Sign me up for a weird book. I just think there's so many possibilities for books like this, and I want to see what direction it goes in. I hope it's very strange. Next, we have another book that's not coming out till 2025, and that's Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. It's going to come out in April, I think, of 2025. I've read 2 Sayaka Murata books. First, I read Earthlings from her, which I enjoyed. I didn't like it as much as a lot of other people. It wasn't as weird as people sold it to me to be, but I still enjoyed it. And then this year, I read Convenience Store Woman, which I loved. It was so good. So I want to read more from Sayaka Murata, and I think this is going to be the next book from her that I read. Basically, it's about the fact that children are only conceived by artificial insemination. Like, people don't have sex anymore. Like, it's taboo to have sex. So that just sounds like an interesting premise, and I hope it has the touch of weird and feminism from Sayaka Murata that we know and love. Next, we have a classic, and it's Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. I actually started reading this, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and so I got to page 208 out of 317. I had like 100 pages left, and I didn't finish it. This is the annotated edition, so these are all annotations, so the book actually ends right here. And like, I left on vacation, and I was in the middle of reading this, and I didn't take the book with me, and then when I came back from vacation, I just didn't finish the book. I don't know what happened, but I was enjoying this book as much as you can enjoy the story of Lolita. So I want to go back to this. I'm obviously not going to pick up at 200 pages. I'm going to start from the beginning because I don't remember all the details, obviously, from 5-6 years ago, but I really want to read this because it's just constantly referenced in literary circles and research about literature in general, and I want to have all the context. Next is a book that I don't have a copy of yet, and that's Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I love stories where there's multiple points of view, multiple different timelines, and from what I understand, that's what Cloud Atlas is. So I feel like this is something that I would really enjoy, even just based on the structure of the story, let alone the fact that people say it's really well written. Also, it was some anniversary of this book being published this year, and some really beautiful editions have come out, and so I want to get one of the beautiful editions, probably this one. So yeah, I think that this is something that I would really enjoy reading. Another book that I really want to read, but I don't have a copy of yet, is Glue by Otessa Moshfegh. I've read My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Lapvona from Otessa Moshfegh, and McGlue is a lot shorter than both of those, and I don't even remember what it's about, but I want to read more Otessa Moshfegh just because she's so committed to putting such weird things in her stories, and in the case of Lapvona, gross things, and McGlue was published before both of those stories that I've already read, so I'm interested to see, okay, back before Otessa was Otessa in our eyes, that we knew so much about her, how was she writing? And also they came out this year with a really beautiful edition of McGlue, and I want to get that edition and read that one. A nonfiction that I want to read in 2025 is Monsters by Claire Dederer. This is about separating art from the artist, which is a concept and a debate that I love thinking about and debating with people about. So I think that this could be really insightful. The next book on this list is a book that I should have read by now. I should have. It's A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. I did start reading this year, and I got kind of far in it, but I ended up getting tempted by like other new releases and stuff and just put it down. And so next year I definitely want to get through A Dance with Dragons, because who knows when the Winds of Winter is coming, you know? You gotta stay optimistic. You gotta stay up to date on the world of Westeros, because you never know when George is gonna hit us with the Winds of Winter. So I have to read this so that I could be ready at any moment for winds. The next book on this list is another one that I don't have a physical copy of yet, but that's Animal Liberation by Peter Singer. So this book is about vegetarianism and veganism, and it was actually published for the first time a pretty long time ago. I want to say like the 80s maybe, I'm not really sure, but just this past year they published a new updated version. And so now, since it's been updated, I am more interested in getting to this book sooner than I was before, because it's been updated, and also because this is just like a foundational book in the world of vegetarianism, veganism. And I always like to read a book on this topic at the beginning of the year, just to push me into the new year, to keep my convictions about being vegetarian and an aspiring vegan. So I think that that's going to be that book for me this year. The next book on this list is actually a collection of manga. So I have Paradise Kiss by Aizawa. This is the author of the Nana manga, which I was obsessed with this year, and I want to read everything else by Aizawa that she has published. And so Paradise Kiss is a very popular manga series by her. So you can see it's very long. I mean, this is the omnibus. It's literally every chapter of Paradise Kiss, and so I definitely want to read this in 2025. I'm excited to get into more Aizawa. And speaking of Aizawa, I also want to read Neighborhood Story from her. The fourth and final book in this series in English is being published at the end of this year, and so I'm waiting for that fourth and final edition before I get into this series. So I will have that fourth book by the time time 2025 rolls around and I want to read all 4 of these. These are counting as one book to me, all 4 volumes of Neighborhood Story. So yeah, I just want to read Paradise Kiss and Neighborhood Story because of how much I loved Nana, and I have to have more Aizawa in my life. Then while we're on the topic of shoujo manga, I want to read Cardcaptor Sakura. This is the first volume of Cardcaptor Sakura. This book is beautiful. It's hardcover. It's perfect. And over the past 2 years, I've really gotten into magical girl manga with Sailor Moon and everything. And obviously Cardcaptor Sakura is such a big name, just like Sailor Moon in the shoujo manga scene. And so I think I'm really going to like this. I want to get into Cardcaptor Sakura in 2025. So you'll notice that those were actually only 24 books. And obviously I wanted to make this 25 books to read in 2025. Well, I am leaving one slot open because I am filming and putting this out before 2025 actually arrives. And so I want to give myself a little bit of flexibility to be able to add another book that I decide on right before 2025 arrives, because I do have a 10 before the end TBR. And if I don't end up getting to all of those 10 books, I want to be able to add one of those to this list. Or if something comes to my attention that I want to add last minute, I want to be able to add that to the list too. So my 25th book, I can't say exactly what it's going to be yet, but if you subscribe to my channel and watch my future videos, you'll find out what it is, because I'll definitely be making a spread in my reading journal. If you're interested in my reading journal videos, it'll definitely be in a spread on my reading journal because I'll commit to it before I make that spread. And obviously you'll see updates from me throughout the year of all the books that I'm reading, and I'll say that it's one of those 25 books. So with all that being said, those are the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. I hope you got some inspiration for your own 25 and 25 list. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are some of the books that you are hoping to get to in 2025? Let me know, and I'll just talk to you next time. Bye.